Okay, so I want to talk about a subject that I have strong views on, and I have spoken about this before, but in previous videos, the sound quality probably wasn't as good. So, with the sound quality being a bit better these days, I want to just make videos that matter, and I do think this is important. I want to talk about the paparazzi. Um, I've always had contempt for what they do, and a lot of people do. I mean, you look at most paparazzi videos, 99% of the comments are going to be critical. Like, these are awful people, and that's putting it politely. Um, I don't like to use vitriolic language, but I do have strong views on them, and I think they are scumbags, basically. And I don't take any pleasure from saying that, but what these people do is really no better than criminal behavior. I mean, what bugs me about it is that they continue to be treated by those who have the power to make laws and by too many in the media industry as somehow legitimate. They're not legitimate. So there's too many mainstream journalists don't necessarily defend them, but they get this mixed up with press freedom. That in itself is a mistake because these people are not journalists and they're not photographers, certainly not in any sort of conventional, acceptable way. I watched this interesting video from Vice News. I've seen it before. It's from 5 years ago. It's basically someone from Vice News. I thought it was wonderful. So the guy basically gave them a taste of their own medicine. He interviewed this paparazzo who, of course, covered his face because they're cards. And basically, in another experiment, they followed some paparazzos around. I assume they got information from the agency or something, but they basically gave them a taste of their own medicine, asked some very personal, crude questions, and of course the paparazzos didn't like it. They tried to cover their face, they walked away, they got aggro at one point. And that was the same of the guy being interviewed. Now he actually had the audacity to play the victim, and he said, "Oh, I've no other choice, man. This is the only thing I can fucking do. This interview's over." And he was trying to make out that he was the victim because he had struggled financially. He was whinging about not being employed as a photographer, as if that somehow justifies what he was doing now. Well, that's absurd. A lot of people get turned down for jobs. It doesn't mean you then have the right to stalk someone. So if he wasn't employed as a photographer, it must have meant he wasn't good enough. And if that's the issue, change your profession. These people just have no shame. Um, But I can go on all day about how awful the paparazzi are. I think that's self-explanatory. But there's a few angles I want to take. Firstly, the public have to stop being hypocritical, because a lot of people will condemn the paparazzi, and then what do they do? They go out and buy tabloids. They go out and buy the likes of National Enquirer. They subscribe to TMZ and other such trash, which keeps these people in business. I mean, that's stupid. You can't complain about the paparazzi and then buy National Enquirer. I'm using that as an example because the sort of things that they cover um, cannot be called journalism. They have, photos of celebrities in rehab, celebrities dying. They've just got absolute no sensitivity whatsoever. Um, and the thing about this is, there are some people out there who make excuses for the paparazzi, and they say things like, "Oh well, if you're famous, it comes with the territory." Well, this is how I take that attitude and that excuse. If someone is in the public eye, let's say they are an actor, a singer, sometimes politician, but especially actors and singers and sports people, okay, you do need to expect a certain level of attention. I get that. And you shouldn't complain about being asked questions on the red carpet. But to be fair, most actors are very patient with this. I saw a video of Gemma Chan recently. Now, this wasn't a paparazzi video because it was a red carpet event, but she was signing autograph after autograph. and she clearly had some function that she had to go to, but she was being super patient. And to me, that is someone who uh, is is just giving something back. You know, she doesn't want to seem like a rich, overprivileged actress, so she's signing autographs, she's taking, you know, letting people take photos. I think if you're a successful and very wealthy person, you need to be grateful for what you have. I do believe that. So I've no time for celebrities who complain about about their lifestyle in terms of the money they have and so on. But I do think it is legitimate to complain if their privacy is being violated, because there is a massive difference between being subjected to lots of photos on the red carpet, which might take time to get used to, but I think that is legitimate, and being subjected to that sort of treatment outside your own house. In my opinion, someone's house is an absolute sacred boundary. It comes back to the last video I made about those protesters outside Mike Pence's house. Um, Everybody should be entitled to a basic level of privacy. And what really bugs me is this perverse argument of press freedom. It just comes down to this nonsense that they are some sort of journalists in the first place. They're not. There is no public interest in seeing, I don't know, a dying George Michael in his last photo. That's got no public interest. Sure, it's got public titillation. You know, people might have a dark sort of interest in it, but the public don't need to know that. So this bizarre argument that it's about press freedom, and like they try to make it like it's important for democracy and stuff to be able to stop people. This is fucked up. And I will say this: I think the United States, certainly certain jurisdictions, really need to get a grip on this. California, cough cough, is one of the worst examples. I mean, it just seems perverse to me that in Hollywood, actors and actresses literally have to put up with their children being harassed, and there's basically nothing they could do about it. I know there was a bill that was trying to be passed. In fact, there's a CNN video interviewing paparazzi. Talk about that in a second, where they touched on that. That was back in 2013. I don't know the exact legal situation now, but I know that recently in New York City, um, there was an actor who was trying to protect his family, and he ended up getting sued by the paparazzi. This is bizarre. It's the worst case of victim blaming I can think of. And people seem to think it's okay because they're celebrities. It's almost as if people deserve to be punished because they're successful. Now, I'm not naive. I know there are celebrities out there who absolutely will do anything for attention. I have not much time for those people. And, you know, someone who, let's say, deliberately flashes their breasts or their penis for attention and then the next week complains about it, I don't have much sympathy for that. But I think it's fair to say the majority of actors, actresses, sports people, and politicians are just trying to get on with what they're trying to do. And it is absolutely absurd that people argue that it's okay to stalk someone just because they're famous. If it's unacceptable to stalk a regular person, it should be unacceptable to stalk anybody. I mean, this is just perverse. When children are involved, especially, that is disgusting. But even when children aren't involved, even on just a private basis, even if someone doesn't have children, I still think it is wrong to jump out from behind a tree and shove a camera in their face. In the UK, we're a little bit stricter than the States, but we're still, in my opinion, too lenient with these people. I mean, the Labour MP Chuka Amuna, one reason he purportedly ended his leadership campaign um, is that paparazzi were hanging outside his grandmother's house. I mean, this is just perverse. If someone's in the public light, it's totally legitimate to ask them questions. And in case of powerful people, it's totally legitimate to hold them to account. That's what the media is for. And I will always defend our rights. You know, I would never want a situation where it's like China. But actually, even in authoritarian states, celebrities still get harassed by the paparazzi, even in those states. Um, Because in Hong Kong, for instance, the paparazzi can run wild. Um, and okay, it's got a certain degree of autonomy. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but it is worthwhile to look at different jurisdictions. Um, I personally believe someone's home is a sacred boundary. I don't agree that journalists should be allowed to ask politicians questions outside the front door. So when Jeremy Corbyn comes out of his house, I don't think journalists should be allowed to get in his face, or Theresa May, or Philip Hammond, or anyone else. I'm not saying they shouldn't be held to account. They should, just not there. So in my opinion, laws really, really need to be strengthened. It's got fuck all to do with free speech, and it really irritates me when people try to make that logic, because this isn't speech; it's an action. Stalking someone is an action, not a speech, not an opinion, an action. I also believe it is totally legitimate for public figures to use aggression as a form of self-defense, especially when they have children or when they're protecting family that are not public figures. So let's say, for example, I was a public figure and my wife wasn't, and they shove a camera in her face. I'm going to lay that guy out, and I'll take all the controversy that follows. But I believe I would be within my right to do that as a form of self-defense, as a form of defending the woman I love. I mean, if you think this is all hyperbole, look at the testimony during the Levison inquiry into phone hacking here in the UK. Sienna Miller testified the fear that she went through, having 20 men that she didn't know following her around. The actress Jennifer Garner made a similar testimony. I don't know if that was in the Levison inquiry or to Congress, but she actually was close to breaking down, and I don't blame her. I mean, I have enormous respect for the tolerance that public figures show because they're in an awful trap. If they do nothing, then these paparazzi leeches just continue doing what they're doing. But if they do, hit back, then the paparazzi present them as crazy people, when in the end of the day, they're responding in a very human way. So what I would say is no matter what you think about a particular celebrity, everybody has a basic right to privacy. And yeah, I get it that there are certain celebrities who do want the attention, but I honestly think those sort of people are in the minority. Sure, actors, actresses, singers want recognition for what they do, but they want recognition at awards ceremonies, on the red carpet, and film festivals, not outside the front door. So it's bullshit to argue that just because someone's famous, oh, it's okay for them to be stalked. If that is your position, there's something seriously wrong with you. Um, so I really think certain jurisdictions need to get their act together and recognize this for what it is, stalking. Um, and I don't believe there are any good paparazzi. That CNN interview, and I'll try and put links under this video to both the Vice thing, where they give the medicinal medicine, and the CNN piece. In the CNN piece, the anchor was interviewing someone who was described as being a co-founder of a paparazzi agency. Now, he actually condemned intrusion of children, and he was very upfront about what he'd done. But notably, he didn't deny that he was a paparazzo. He went on to talk about press freedom and all the same nonsense. I really think the problem is in authoritarian states, there is no press independence. But in the United States and Britain, in my opinion, the press has way too much power. And frankly, this is something that Trump has spoken about. If there is some curtailment of just how far these people go, I think that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing because, it's the human rights of public figures to have privacy. I'm being deadly serious when I say that. Public figures are human beings like the rest of us. They deserve privacy. So, yeah, if you're famous, you should expect a certain level of attention. I get it. But there's just no excuse for stalking. And in my opinion, celebrities, I don't even like using that term, public figures, I'll say, deserve, should have the right to defend themselves. If that means using physical force, so be it. In the end of the day, would you say to a woman who's being attacked by a rapist, "Oh, you've no right to strike him"? Well, what is the difference with a burlish paparazzo shoving his camera in a young woman's face because she's an actress? Is there really any difference? So yeah, it pisses me right off. I really have total, utter, deep contempt for these people. And final thing I'll say is there is big public responsibility with this. Most people agree that they are horrible people, but the public also has a responsibility. Don't buy National Enquirer. Don't subscribe to TMZ. If you buy tabloids, be very careful how they source their photos, because a lot of tabloid photos, if you look at it, are basically sourced from the paparazzi. If you look at the angle the photo is taken, it's very easy to tell a photo where the subject clearly knows a photo has been taken and they're consenting to it, i.e., on the red carpet or in a film festival. But that is a world of difference between, someone taking a photo behind the bushes. And as Jennifer Garner, it was either Jennifer Garner or Halle Berry testified, when the paparazzi do this, it then gives legitimacy to other stalkers to follow along. In other words, you could have a very dangerous individual who actually wants to do that person harm, could easily just masquerade as a paparazzo to get through, to get access to them. So not only is their own behavior despicable, but they are making that person vulnerable to dangerous individuals. So yeah, I do feel very strongly about this, and I believe that those really need to be strengthened. Not for a second am I saying that celebrities are above criticism or above scrutiny or anything like that. And certainly, if if a public figure does reckless, outlandish things, they have to expect attention for that. Sometimes they will want that attention, but I just don't buy this thing that oh, they're famous, therefore they deserve to be stopped. Give me a break. The vast majority of actors, actresses, and singers do not want to be stopped. It's a lot of crap. So let me know your thoughts. But yeah, that's my take on it. I really believe that laws need to be strengthened.